All right, so one of the most contentious controversies revolves around substantial land allocation in Abuja. And this is all happening during the tenure of the current FCT minister, Nyesom Wike. Reports and public concerns have focused on the alleged assignment of multi-billion naira lands parcel to individuals closely tied to him. So a document that leaked showed that his 90-year-old father, siblings, cousins, nephews, and political allies, often referred to as cronies, they have all, gotten some form of allocations, of land. Now, critics argue that these allocations raise serious concerns about nepotism, abuse of authority, and a troubling disregard for merit and due process. Supporters, meanwhile, they discount the allegations as politically motivated. Of course, what else would you say? As Nigerians continue to demand accountability and institutional integrity, the land controversy presents a critical case study. Does this reveal blatant favoritism under the guise of governance, or is it simply bureaucratic mismanagement magnified by politics? I don't know if we have our guest now, but we're supposed to have a guest joining us. Barister Evans Ofeli, he's a legal practitioner. I don't know if he's there, but if he's not there, okay, he's not here yet. So once he joins us, we would have him help us understand, legalities of this. But for context sake, right? Background and context, right? Nyesom Wike is currently serving as the FCT minister, right? And the tenure, of course, started in August of 2023. As FCT minister, the Federal Capital Territory Ministry and Federal Capital Development Authority are mandated, right, to manage public lands, land allocation through regulated frameworks, right, involving public applications, competitive bidding, and valuation, right, for background sake. So meaning that Nyesom Wike is in charge of a lot of things, as regards land allocations in Abuja. For another sake of background and context, there has been a lot of allegations that if you see that letter that came out, the land document, it showed that Wike's 90-year-old father, his cousins, close relatives, so we're talking siblings, cousins, nephews, even his sons, we saw the allegations where Senator Nkigbe, alleged that she gave for an instance that if a property was like 200 million, the price crashed overnight to 2 million, within less than 48 hours to 2 million, and then the children were able to acquire that property. And these are people, these are allegations that are out there in the public, so that we do not think, oh, it's coming from UWA. Now, public office, they said that they have leveraged to grant large multi-billion naira land parcel to individuals that have personal ties with Wike. And they have bypassed standard proceedings, and it's not merit-based. And, the process is just a bit skewed, like I said, what Senator Nkigbe had accused Wike of. Another context we want to put in this conversation, right, is that critics have said that there was no open tender or public advertisement for some of these allocations. So, as I said before, opaque documentation, records like, especially key records, right, like valuation reports, bid evaluation, award letters, they are all reportedly not accessible to applicants or the public, right? No clear challenge process, no formal mechanism for unsuccessful bidders. And again, when those normally when you are unsuccessful in your bidding, you can appeal or request an audit, but none of those things have happened, right? So another context that we're going to put to this conversation, right? Primary oversights agencies, including the FCDA Internal Audit Ministry and the FCT Vigilance Unit, the National Assembly Committee, anti-corruption bodies like EFCC, ICPC, all of those people were asking simple questions. What roles, have you played in some of all these allegations? Will I call it, he's not a social media activist, he's a public figure. Isaac Fayoshe actually even wrote a letter to the Code of Conduct. I want to read the letter out, right? The Chairman Code of Conduct Bureau. He says the request for release of a copy of the asset declaration, right, by Nyesom Wike. He says he's asking, right, in pursuant to the provision of the Freedom of Information Act, right, amended to formally request for the release of copies of asset declaration form that was submitted by, of course, our current minister who occupies this role, which is in their custody, the asset declaration. He is convinced that the asset declaration form, which was submitted to the provision of the extant law, all these legal terminologies, is in your custody as required under the Act, and is simply is a subject of public disclosure as required under the Act, more specifically Section 4 of the Act. I humbly request that the information be provided within 7 days of the receipt of this application, and I undertake to pay all necessary processing fee upon demand. Accept the assurance of my esteemed consideration and regard for upholding the desired principle of transparency and accountability. Yours faithfully. So now this letter is coming off of the back of the recent interview, or would I call it not so recent interview that Nyesom Wike had, you understand, with the political anchor on Channels Television, Seun Akimboloye, when he was talking about him purchasing a Rolls Royce, and of course with the allegations of the sons owning properties that are running in billions in Abuja. There are just too many allegations out there. And you know what? One thing that is really upsetting me is the fact that with all these things that is going around, our president is just still mum, or is it that they are doing bigger things? I don't know. Right? Because again, all these land issues started when, I'm really hoping that our guest is here so that we can even start the conversation. Because I know that it can be traced to when there was a lot of revoking of documentation in Abuja. A lot of people were unable to, I think they gave them ultimatum to go and pay certain kinds of amount and all of that. All of these were happening. And now, all of a sudden, right, a few months down the line, we're hearing that some of those lands, they were in prime locations, and because maybe they could not meet up to the obligations of, obligations of what, the minister had, mandated, a lot of those land documents were revoked. And now all of a sudden today we're hearing that there's a father somewhere, there's a cousin somewhere, there's a sibling somewhere, there are children somewhere, you understand, getting this land. How fair is this, right? And yet we are not, everybody's just keeping quiet. So the questions that have been raised, right, we are asking all these agencies, your ICPC, EFCC, National Assembly, even everybody, right, that's supposed to be like people that are protecting the laws. Were these agencies notified, or did they even self-initiate any inquiry at all to say, okay, we are seeing all these things flying all over social media. What is going on? Do we have our guest now? Okay. Thank you so much for joining me.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah.
I think you had a bit of issue joining the call, Barister Evans.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't join through Zoom because it wasn't responding.
Oh, okay, that's fine, that's fine. At least we're here now. Oh, yeah, so tell me, right, we're not talking about Natasha or my director. We're talking Nyesom Wike. Your lower third, you need to correct it. So, Wike's land allocation controversy, right?
Yes.
Can you give me a background summary? Because I try to put context to the conversation. I don't know how far you heard, the background context. So context is that due processes were not followed. Context is that a lot of allegations flying up and down. His father, his children, his cousins, his siblings, his political allies, all of them are being, collecting land. And, let's not forget that all of these things started when they started giving certain kinds of ultimatum to landowners in Abuja to come and pay some kind of fees, and they started revoking land documents, and all of a sudden we're now hearing a few months down the line that these lands, you know, some of them, especially in the prime locations, are now being reassigned or reallocated. There was an allegation that Senator Nkibe came out on Arise. I watched that clip, you know, that went viral, where she was talking about how, you know, the price of a particular property crashed in less than 48 hours, and so that the people could purchase that property. So you just, Barister Evans, what exactly is going on with these allegations around Nyesom Wike and the land, what's it called, drama in Abuja?
Yeah, it seems very sketchy. So we have to be very careful in this analysis because it's still very sketchy. Sketchy in the sense that when you look at the traditional media, they all avoided that story. I don't know why. It's only Sarah reporters that quoted Gazette, okay, that really have that story flying on their main platform, okay, and that is understandable. I mean, the traditional media have not gotten it yet. Perhaps as the day go by, they may come to terms with the true story of what happened. It's still an allegation because no court of law has interrogated the issue or come up with investigation from any investigative authority that have found anybody wanting in all that. But what I know, the issues that are facts are the issues I will discuss. It is the fact that Wike is the minister of the FCT. That's one, sacred fact. It's also the fact that the minister of the FCT is in charge of land administration and management in the FCT based on the Land Use Act, 1978. It is also a fact that it is the minister that look into allocation, C of O, you know, R of O, that has to do with local authorities and all supervision of land in the FCT. So there is no kind of allocation, reallocation, or issues of a tenement rate, land use rates, and the rest of that, that anybody can talk about without mentioning Wike. Okay? Now, not too long ago, an online newspaper made a publication as to the fact that Wike is involved in racketeering. I mean, more like land grabbing land for his family's friends, relatives, you know, a father of a 90-year-old father and all that. And most of these properties are situated in the very prime area of Abuja called Gusape. If you know Abuja very well, Gusape is perhaps one of the most beautiful places you can ever go to in this country, in this whole country, because of the wealth of real estate investment in that location of Abuja. It used to be Maitama before, but Maitama have lost it to Gusape and some other emerging areas. So it's a prime area, and so many persons, everybody in this country want to have a piece of land in Gusape. So it is not surprising that this allegation is coming at this point in time. Now, as to whether the allegations are true or not, like I said, it's still sketchy. I am surprised why the relevant authorities have not gone into proper investigation up until now with everything that is going on. Or if they have been investigating, who is responsible for infractions, land infractions, racketeering and all that, allocations and illegality. Who is responsible? The only person's name that I mentioned is Wike, and the young man that was arrested, in that ages, the ministry that, you know, that oversee the issues of land and that. And it was purportedly reported that it was Wike that arrested him and kept him in detention at his pleasure. That the young man leaked certain documents, which has become the bone of contention. The recent one is that there are a lot of documents that are out there in the public now showing that Wike truly allocated a lot of properties to his friends and cronies, family members, and the rest of that. The veracity of that, okay, has not been confirmed because, like I said, the traditional media, they used to be slow because they are not practicing when in doubt, they leave out, okay? For the benefit of doubt, they are slow in their, the online ones are the ones that are very quick in publication. So from all I have gathered, for me, I think that we need more time to interrogate this issue. If it is true that Wike truly has done all this, then he may be running against a very fundamental provision of the Constitution, where the Constitution clearly says that a civil servant or a public servant must not use his office to enrich himself. Okay, which is when you do that, it becomes a criminal offense. That may be what Wike might be working against, up and against in this whole thing, because he's a public servant. He's supposed to go by the rules of equity and justice and fairness. Any attempt to use that office to directly or indirectly enrich himself or his family members, his cronies, and all that will amount to a serious offense under the law, which is constitutional. And Wike, as the minister of the FCT, will have to face the music, as it were.
Okay. Barister Evans, let's quickly run off on this very quick break. We'll just go out and come back. I want us to stick to this fact that you have touched on. I have a few questions for you. Stay with us. We'll be right back. All right, thanks for staying tuned. Now, if you just tuned in, we're discussing the controversy surrounding Nyesom Wike's land allocation as raising a lot of questions, right, around transparency, accountability, and ethical use of public office. And I have with me Barister Evans. He's joined me via a call. Now, please, let's hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-84663. Leave your messages also. For those that are watching live on YouTube, you leave your messages. We'll read your messages. You can also call us. The number to call 07025 007749 or 07014242420. Let's hear what you have to say. Barister Evans. So sticking to what you said, because I like the direction, let's just stick to facts and not go around peddling conversation. One fact that I know is that I saw an interview of the Senator Nkibe, the Senator of the FCT, accusing Nyesom Wike of this same issue, right? Tweaking or bringing down the cost of a property to be able to, quickly sell properties to his people. That's one fact that is out there in public domain. Secondly, you touched on the agencies. So we're talking the primary oversight agencies would be the FCDA, internal audits, the Ministry of the FCT Vigilance Unit, National Assembly committees, right? The anti-corruption agencies like the EFCC and the ICPC. In the event that, all these documents have been leaked and there was an arrest or there was no arrest or whatever it is, what is supposed to be the ideal process when information like this have gone out and is out there in the open, everybody's seeing it? How do we tell that these people are actually accountable to us Nigerians? What are they supposed to be doing?
Well, what are Nigerians supposed to be doing, right?
No. I'm talking about these bodies, these agencies, the
relevant authorities.
Yes.
The relevant authorities need to swing into action. There are two ways to which they can take on the matter. One, is where a petition is submitted to them for the purposes of investigation. And two, they can initiate the process themselves without necessarily having a petition before them. Okay? So those are the two ways for which they can do this. And I do not think that these authorities have really taken hold of this case, as it were. I wouldn't know why, because first, Wike is a minister of the FCT. It does not have immunity under the law. Let's not mistake it. It's not a governor of the FCT. There's nothing like governor of the FCT. It was appointed, not elected. So it is only for states that you have governors and the deputy governors that have immunity under Section 308 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. He does not have immunity. If perhaps maybe they are confusing his position for one that have immunity. And assuming but not conceding that he has an immunity, he can also be investigated. Do you understand? He can also be investigated. So it is left to Nigerians, okay, to call upon the relevant authorities to investigate this matter, because it borders heavily on the integrity of a public officer. Okay, a public officer that is the minister of the FCT. And so this should not be taken with kid gloves. It should not be taken lightly. The institutions, why they are not acting, I do not know. Even the press, why they are not, why the spotlight is not on this case as heavy as the story is, it's also surprising. Okay, so is there anybody somewhere trying to kill this story? Is somebody sponsoring, or is somebody knocking off the story from getting out there? What exactly is going on? Who is doing what, when, and how? These are questions that must be answered. And by now, I believe that because someone was arrested along the line, I believe that the relevant authority must have gotten a wind of this information. So why they have not acted is then the issue we need to ask ourselves. Is it for the want of petition before them, or is it that they do not have capacity to now go ahead to undertake, whereas the law says that where there's reasonable suspicion? I mean, for the police, at least I know that for the police, where there's reasonable suspicion, they need to act. Even for the EFCC to an EFCC act, where there is reasonable suspicion. All agencies that execute law, all agencies that interrogate, investigate, trace, all that, they have that clause in their respective status, their extant laws, that where there's a reasonable, cause, they can undertake that issue unilaterally without waiting for a petition. So Nigerians we need to talk more about this issue so that in the days to come, it will come to the public glare as to exactly what is going on. If these allegations were true, I mean, the FCT minister might be in a very deep problem, because these properties and the administration of this land in the FCT is a very serious matter. It's a very serious matter when I do a lot of practice of the law in Abuja. And when you get to the courts in Abuja, over 60% of the cases has to do with land matters. Land matters rigorously. People want to kill themselves because of properties. And so we need to hear more of this from the press and from the relevant authorities to brief us.
Okay, so just for the sake of education, right, because one of the allegations that is being thrown around is the fact that, due process and transparency wasn't followed, right? So for the sake of just even educating us, right, what is due process for issues around land allocation? Because some critics have said that there was no open tender or any public advertisement for these allocations, right? And the documents were really opaque. Can we truly call for these documents? Because normally you're supposed to have valuation reports, bid evaluation, award letters, and all of these things are supposed to be accessible to the public, for people to be able to just look at it. Then if you bidded, for instance, and it was unsuccessful, you can either appeal it or request for an audited report, so you see, okay, this is where you missed it. So all this documentation, right, is it something that if we request for it today, it will be made available to us as the public? And if the answer is yes, how do we go about making those requests?
Yes, those requests can be made. And, we have the Freedom of Information Act, okay? Pursuant to the relevant provisions of the Freedom of Information Act, you can apply to the authority that is in charge of this land in Abuja, okay? Now, when you apply for this document, it is their responsibility to hand over these documents to the respective applicants, at least a certified true copy of them, to check and verify and all that. And the issue of land when it comes to the FCT is a public offer. Public, is public oriented. And these issues are not shrouded in secrecy, except that politicians, when they assume office and they want to play smart, they go through the back door to make what is supposed to be made publicly, they make it secret. And so they begin to acquire properties through illegal means, obtaining original documents within days, and all sorts that goes on under this fraudulent activities. Now, when that is done, society should change. Otherwise, what is required under the law is that the process must be transparent. Now, who guarantees the transparency of the process? Is the law enforcement agency must be on ground to ensure that accountability and transparency. Then the minister himself, the institution itself, must be able to show to the public that this went through process, went through publication to the public, went to a public offer. There were applicants, people bidded, and all that. They should be able to show all records to that effect. Anything short of that would mean that they have circumvented the process. And when a process is circumvented, you begin to hear things like this. I mean, there's no reason for us to begin to find out such kind of rumor that one man is allocating, land upon land to family members, friends, and the rest of that. Okay, this is not the first time this story is coming to the public clear. I think 1 month ago we had that issue too, where they're talking about the name in the document being the same name with one of the sons of the minister of the FCT and the rest of that. And that was resolved to a point where the story died halfway. So by virtue of the Freedom of Information Act, we can access this document. And when you put up this application and the relevant institution fails to provide such information, it becomes an infraction. On the basis of that, you can now apply to the court through what you call a motion for a mandamus, wherein the court will make an order compelling the institution, the relevant institution, to, act according to law. So that is the process.
Okay, so as we try to bring down this conversation to a close today, I'm trying to avoid, but if these allegations are true in any form, shape, right, what should be the right approach, to handling the situation, especially from the standpoint of the executives that have appointed him as the FCT minister?
This is not the first time we have seen a minister that, if it turns out to be true, a minister that was caught up in corrupt tendency. I mean, in this administration, early in this administration, we had a Better Edu, who, by virtue of some corruptive tendency, had to be dropped as a minister. We have the other minister, the one the one that has to do with disaster management and whatsoever, also drop off at some point because of certain allegations and the rest of that. So the SCT minister will be invited by the relevant security agency, okay, to face the allegations before him. If they find him culpable, perhaps they will institute an action against him. But it's left for the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who appointed him, to decide whether or not he is going to dismiss or whatsoever it is of penalty you find there. Because once this kind of allegation is hanging on the neck of a minister, the honorable thing to do is to resign. But because we don't resign in Nigeria, we will be at the mercy of the president until the president decides whether he wants to reshuffle his cabinet, he wants to sack, or he wants to suspend. And I think in better this case, the word suspension was used, even though it's still there till now. So sometimes they ask you to go on terminal leave, or they ask you to, whatever it is, language they decide to deploy is the prerogative of the executive to so decide. The president can remove anybody at any time without running foul of any law. So that is what the case is. Until then, that's why I said we need time on this case, so that when things unfold, we'll have a clearer picture of what has happened.
Okay. One final question for you. The legal processes in Nigeria can be quite cumbersome. You said that if you had 100 cases in the courts today in Abuja, 60% are linked to issues around land. Same here in Lagos. I think it's everywhere in the prime cities, in Nigeria. Land problem has always been from time immemorial. Is it possible that the court, are very they start to carry out expedited processes? Is it something that can be possible? Is it something that we can also demand for? So you're not in court dragging case for years. Is that possible?
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible, but the possibility is costs. It has cost implication, because we need to build more courts and we need to employ more judges. Because if you look at over 200 million people, in most of these states, when you go, how many courts do you have? In Abuja, for example, the courts, in Abuja, how many courtrooms do you have in the whole of the High Court complex? Okay. And land matters are only the State High Court that have original jurisdiction to hear land matters, not the federal high courts. Okay, so we need to build more courts, employ more judges, expand the judicial space. We are still handling the judiciary as though we are still, 10 million people. Okay, whereas we're over 200 million. Cases are being filed every day.
Barister Evans,
Yes.
There was just a conclusion. We saw photo shoot on social media now. All the law people, even including your Senator Dino Milai, is now a lawyer. We have a lot of lawyers graduating from law school.
You are talking about lawyers. I'm talking about judges.
Oh, okay.
Before you can be a high court judge, you must have put in 10 years in practice.
So my point is, can they not step down instead of 10 years in practice, 5 years in practice, make more judges? I'm just saying.
No. You need to understand what law is. You see all this one you saw that called to the bar last week. You see all this one you see that at the end of the day, less than 30% of them will come to practice.
Most of them will go to entertainment law. They don't like litigation.
Many of them want to sing. Many of them want to sell hair. Many of them want to do many things.
Barister Evans, that's not nice. He said they want to say.
No, they have alternative talents. You understand? Which they find lucrative. So at the end of the day, we are only few left in litigation. So for some of us who cannot do any of that in other than litigation, we are left in litigation. So many of them will go and do many will travel out and all that. Many of them will go and do commercial practice where they will not go to court to to face any judge and all that. So at the end of the day, we're left with less than 30%. That 30%, you must put in 10 years before you can become a judge. Before you can get appointed in the Supreme Court, you have to put in 15 years and the rest of that. It is that long period that will really ground you in the law, because it's not enough to graduate as a lawyer. The law is not taught in the law school. You learn the law in practice. So all they are doing in the law school is just to help you to think like a lawyer. That's all. Learning the law is in practice. So that is what it is.
Thank you so much, Barister Evans. I think you've really done justice to this conversation. Thank you so much for your time this
Very
evening.
well.
All right, so the controversy surrounding Nyesom Wike's alleged allocation of prime Abuja land to his 90-year-old father, family members, cousins, children, close associates, of course, has once brought to the forefront Nigeria's persistent challenges with transparency and accountability, as we had mentioned, and of course, the abuse of public office. While public officials are expected to act in the interest of the nation, the allegations that have been brought forth suggest a troubling pattern of favoritism and personal enrichment, and undermines public trust and weakens ultimately institutions that are supposed to have integrity. So at the heart of this issue is not just a question of legality, but one of ethical governance and public responsibility. When due process is sidelined, the public resources are perceived to be distributed based on connections rather than merit. It breeds this cynicism, it erodes civic confidence, it fuels systemic corruption. So to restore credibility, it is imperative for institutions to uphold transparency, enforce accountability, and ensure equitable access to public assets, right? Investigation must be thorough and impartial, and reforms must go beyond rhetorics. Only by holding leaders accountable and closing the gap in governance can Nigeria move forward to a more just and transparent system on which public office is truly positioned to serve and not for personal interests. So to this light, I would call on all the relevant authorities that are supposed to be governing bodies or watchdog for issues around these allegations to please, even if the public does not call you to act, for just sake of integrity, act and investigate, and let us see, how the process has been, if it's been transparent and if it's been good. All right, so thank you again to our guest, Barister Evans. Thank you so much for watching. For you watching us online everywhere, thank you for watching. And please remember to like, share, invite your families and friends to continue to watch and follow the conversation. If you missed our quote from our Nyesom Wike, the current FCT minister, he says there's great accountability and transparency in the way funds are being managed now. So he's referring to all the funds that he has been able to, raise and gather in the FCT since he assumed the position as minister of the FCT. So hopefully, let's see, how true this quote is from him. We'll see you guys tomorrow, 8 p.m. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Nigeria, by extension Africa, battles a growing youthful population, and with little or no meaningful engagement, lives a ticking time bomb on our hands. We are a blessed continent with great wealth, both in people and material. Our focus on ways remains driving conversations that affects us all. Topics in the news, social concerns, politics, leadership, governance, empowerment, resource management, conflict management, finance, SME sustainability, technological innovation, food security, health, education, brain drain, our well-being, citizenship, and much more. Our goal is to continuously drive these conversations, keep them burning at the table to effect a positive change, both for our nation and continent. Ways, what are you saying, has a secret ingredient that completes the conversation every single episode, and that ingredient is you. Our past conversations shaped our yesterday. To shape our tomorrow, we must keep talking. So, I want to hear you. Be a part of our live conversations Mondays through Fridays. And let's all have our say.